This is your Knight Rider read-along book. Every time you hear this chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook. Now, if you are ready, we will start the story, KITT Vanishes. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the chime. Hello. I'm the mainframe memory computer, case history section, Knight Enterprises. I have file 1421 online for interface at this time. It all began on a typical Southern California afternoon. Michael Knight had responded to a call for help from an old friend, Big Ed Garvey, the world champion top fuel drag race driver and owner of Mean Machines Incorporated. As always, the garage area of Mean Machines was bedlam, with mechanics working on scores of dragsters, everything from stock eliminators and funny cars to the sleek rail machines. Conversation was impossible with the roars of racing engines being tuned, even by yelling. So Big Ed and Michael went into the office. Big Ed laid out the problem. The mob was moving in on drag racing with a betting line, and so they could manipulate the odds more easily, they were stealing the top cars that were winning consistently. If the California afternoon was typical, so was the conversation between KITT and Michael as they rumbled along the freeway, headed back to the Knight mansion. KITT was exhibiting his usual mixture of skepticism and reserve about a plan of Michael's, and Michael was ignoring him, as usual. The thing that was different this time, however, was KITT's immediate reaction of horror and flat refusal to participate. Michael wanted to use the Trans Am, and KITT, the car's computer of course, as bait to trap the mob. The mob would steal the car and lead Michael to the people heading the operation, and he would put them out of business. Simple, except that to make the Trans Am attractive to them, it would have to be turned into a drag racer, race and win. And KITT considered drag racing the lower end of the spectrum, vulgar, greasy, and beneath his dignity. He was strictly Formula One. Rolling along in the Knight Enterprises semi, which is the only tractor-trailer garage of its kind in the world, there was a face-off between April Curtis, the chief mechanic, Devin, Michael, and KITT, who was insisting that he was not acting like a spoiled child, refusing to get dressed up for the party. They were on their way to a race, so there wasn't much time for April to turn the Trans Am into a championship drag racer. KITT was adamant, though, his readouts glowing and bleeping. That's when Devin's urbane sense of diplomacy took over, and he uttered the word that turned things around. Duty. With the Trans Am's new look and numbers, even KITT was beginning to get into it. But he'd never let on to Michael that the whole experience was anything but a painful chore to be born with a stiff upper lip and dignity. But it was exciting. He was a stock eliminator dragster, sitting at the starting line, looking down the narrow asphalt tunnel to the finish line, a mile away. The crowd was roaring with anticipation and the exciting gunning of the racing engines. Michael, dressed in his flame suit, helmet, goggles, and breather, looked like some strange type of insect. The engine roared as he heated up the slicks. The sweet, pungent odor of racing fuel and burning rubber filled the air. The light tree went from red to green, and they were gone, in a surge of power. It was all even. Then they edged ahead, and then it was over. They won. The chute popped open, and they rolled to a stop. If KITT had just been getting into it before, he was up to his monitor at this point. Nothing gets you pumped up like being a winner and the adulation of the cheering crowd. On the drive to the winner's circle, the blasts erupting from the exhausts declared that a champion had been born. Michael shut down the power plant, and two cute blondes sidled up to him as he emerged from the car. He waved and smiled to flashbulbs and congratulations. KITT's readouts were glowing and bleeping again. That was it. Michael got the girls and he just sat there? Then one of the blondes leaned over and kissed the hood. KITT sighed, uncharacteristically. Too excited to sit still, Michael and KITT decided to forgo returning home on the semi and to take the open road instead. The big racing slicks aren't your usual wear for a drive on the highway, but they were savoring the sweet taste of victory and didn't care. At this point, KITT's circuits developed a frown, if the computer is capable of that sort of thing. He told Michael that the scanner had picked up something strange. It said there was a landmine up ahead. Michael laughed. Mine? A U.S. highway? How far? When KITT answered 50 feet, Michael hit the turbo boost. After landing, they continued on. Michael suggested it could have been a squashed tin can. The mobsters were just as confused when the Trans Am rolled past their hiding place off the highway. They drove back to take a look, and the mine exploded. After the highway explosion, Michael and KITT knew the rats wanted the cheese. It was only a matter of time now. But sitting in the dark parking lot, KITT was feeling left out and angry again, readouts glowing and bleeping. Michael was up in apartment 2B, while KITT listened to laughing and music, feeling as if he were dangling on a string. KITT couldn't stand it anymore, so he called Michael on the watch radio. Michael's answer was whispered. He was in the other room. He told KITT how tough it was up there, and KITT was too disgusted to even respond. Michael explained again how the blondes were mob girls, to sit tight. They hadn't been invited over for nothing. KITT was skeptical. Nothing was going to happen. That's when he heard the wrecker roll to a stop with its engine and lights off. One of the guys in the truck had a portable radio with incredibly bad reception, which he put on the roof of the Trans Am as both of them went to work. Quietly, KITT tried to contact Michael, but couldn't. The static on the radio was blocking transmission. Before KITT knew it, the two guys had jacked up the whole car and rolled a special dolly right under it. Then, they hitched their truck to the dolly and hauled away the Trans Am, with KITT wishing he could escape, or at least turn off the radio. When Michael woke up, his head felt like somebody was kicking it with a hobnailed boot. The blondes had put knockout drops in his drink. He staggered to the window, but he could barely see anything because of the sunlight stabbing at his eyeballs. However, he could see well enough to know that the Trans Am and KITT were gone. Michael felt a little foolish when he got out of the cab back at the night mansion. And the look on Devon's face didn't help any, especially because he had to ask him for money to pay the driver. They had been in the air for over an hour, and the helicopter ride wasn't helping his headache any. Michael couldn't figure it out. They had searched the grid twice and had been unable to pick up the transponder signal from the Trans Am. Where was KITT? It was as if he'd vanished. The garage of the junkyard was a greasy dungeon. There were layers of dirt and grime under layers of dirt and grime. And KITT was appropriately disgusted at the thought of meeting his end in such surroundings, at the hands of a pair of grease monkeys. It was all too awful. And, like black icing on a black cake, there was the infernal racket of the radio. It was making his circuits fuzzy. But worst of all, he knew it was blocking the transponder signal, if Michael had been able to pull himself away from the blondes long enough to look for him. The two guys had decided they would cut up the Trans Am and sell the parts, so one of them lit the blowtorch with a cigarette and lowered his goggles. But after an hour of fruitless effort against the car's superior metal, they were angry. KITT had no idea where they were taking him now, but for the moment he didn't care. He was finally spared the grating static of the radio. It had been left behind in the garage when they hooked up the dolly to the truck again. Maybe Michael would pick up the transponder signal and get him out of this, KITT thought, because there was nothing he could do as long as the Trans Am's tires were off the ground. If he started the engine and put it in gear, he'd literally be spinning his wheels. They stopped near a hydraulic compressing machine. KITT was really worried now. There was already a car inside the pressure cavity on the press, so one of the guys hit a button, and the pressure plates began their relentless, crushing journey. After the last screeching, scraping crunch had ceased, the plates opened again, revealing a pathetic bale of compacted metal. One of the guys swung a crane arm around and lifted it out with a giant magnet. Then, the huge magnet landed on the roof of the Trans Am with a jarring thud. The next thing KITT knew, he was getting a bird's eye view of the junkyard and not enjoying it at all. That's when KITT got his brainstorm. He hit the turbo boost. When the crane stopped spinning, the magnet released the Trans Am and it landed like a cat on all fours. The thug standing near the press tried to make a break for it, but KITT cut him off with the Trans Am. At the same time, the helicopter in which Michael had been searching for KITT landed amid a swirl of dust. As the helicopter took away the very dizzy crane operator and his accomplice to police headquarters, KITT told Michael that the next time he was going to the party, and Michael could wait out in the parking lot.